How's it going, everybody? Squeegee Down Toy here, and today we're going to be taking a look at using GitHub to back up, version, and share our projects. This is a very useful tool. I've been using it a great deal lately, and it is incredibly key if you want to make sure to protect your files from corruption, damage, or just a really good way to undo a lot of changes very quickly. Consider this your Control S and Control Z on a grand scale. So let's jump right into it. I highly recommend that everybody start using this, and I can kind of go into a little more depth as to why it's so phenomenal in a little bit here. But first, let's just get jumped into how to set it up for our projects. First things first, go to github.com and go ahead and sign up an account. If you already have an account, great, you're a step ahead. Otherwise, go ahead and go through the basic process of creating an account. The next step after creating an account is we're going to go ahead and download GitHub Desktop. The link to this will be in the description, or just go to desktop.github.com. Go ahead and download for Windows 64-bit or whatever your applicable platform is. The process for installing GitHub Desktop is very simple, and it shouldn't take you too long. Just make sure to stick with the default and simple options. We don't need anything crazy for what we're doing. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and sign in and make sure to get your account registered onto your GitHub Desktop account. You can go to Options, Accounts, and Sign In. As you can see, I'm already signed into mine. The next step, and this is very important for working with Unity projects, is we need to download Git Large File Storage. This allows us to share large file types like what we use in Unity on GitHub Online, allowing us to publish our projects remotely, the internet, and not just locally, our computer. Go ahead and hit download and install. It takes about 5 seconds to install the program. Once we've gone ahead and downloaded this, we're going to initialize it for our account. This is a very easy process. All we need to do is go to our Windows bar here, and in search we're going to type CMD to open the command prompt app. And we're going to type exactly what it tells us to here, GIT LFS install. Hit enter, and it should say GIT LFS initialized. And that's it. That's all we have to do. GIT LFS is now ready to be used with our GitHub. The next step is going to be to go ahead and create our own GitHub repository. There's a few ways we can do this. We can go ahead and go File and New Repository. This is a great way to do this, and this is kind of the standard default. Another thing we can do, and what I recommend for you guys, especially for your first time doing this, is go File and Clone Repository. And then we're going to clone this repository here that I have gone ahead and published for you guys to use. Comes with a default HDRP scene with absolutely nothing in it, and the Git attributes and Git ignores that you need. Really quickly, let's take a look at these files. First of all, the Git ignore. This is very important that it goes in the Unity project file. We'll take a look at this in a second here, but this is a Unity project here. As you can see, assets, packages, etc. And the Git ignore basically tells GitHub what files to ignore and not use when uploading to GitHub. This is really important because, as you can tell, there's a ton of folders out here, and we don't want those folders because Unity will automatically initialize them, and they don't need to be versioned. If you're creating your own repository instead of cloning mine, I recommend that you take this Git ignore. You can go ahead and go raw, and we can copy and paste this into our own Git ignore on our computer. And then, of course, there's also the Git attributes. And what this is doing is it's just telling Git LFS what file types to use. And it looks a little overwhelming, but it's really just telling LFS process these files. Okay, so we can go ahead and copy the link here, and we can go ahead and paste it into our clone repository area and clone. And this will take a little bit. Once it's done, it's going to go ahead and give us this pop-up that says Initialize Git LFS, and we definitely want to hit Initialize Git LFS. And what that has done is it's gone ahead and set LFS up for this specific repository. And as you can see, we now have our repo on our computer, and you can see the history of the changes I have made. I just did a couple of test things. I actually filmed this tutorial once already and hated it, so I'm refilming it, and these were things that I showed in the tutorial. One thing to keep in mind is I actually have the GitHub plugin in Unity installed on this project, and I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. Really quickly though, let's take 2 steps back and let's create a new repository from scratch. So we're going to go New Repository, and we'll call this, as you can see, I've gone ahead and named it, and I'm going to do a description so I know what it is. And the local path is going to my Documents GitHub folder, where my other GitHub project go. As you can see, I've got a couple here. Now, the git ignore, it's actually useful to go ahead and initialize it with a Unity one, or you can just copy and paste the one I have above, and the license will leave empty. And we can go ahead and now hit create repository project and put it into that repository. What we want to do is go new, and I'm going to choose my Unity version, and I'm going to navigate to my GitHub repo to folder and put it there. And I've gone ahead and named it so that I know that it is the Unity project, and we're going to go ahead and create it. And I'm not going to create this in HDRP just so it goes a little faster. Okay, so our Unity project is created, and we can go ahead and take a look at our GitHub tutorial repository here. As you can see, there's over 1,000 files, and we don't want that. And the reason is because our git ignore is in the wrong location. So we're going to go ahead and navigate to our folder, and we're going to take our git ignore and we're going to put it into the Unity project file here. And we can already tell that it has been reduced by a great deal. That's exactly what we want. We want at most a couple hundred, not thousands of files being initialized here. And when creating an HDRP project, you'll see a lot more files here because it comes with a lot more by default. The regular 3D is just a lot more simple. The next thing we're going to want to do is make sure to set up our Git attributes. As you can see, the default Git attributes is empty, and we need to make sure to grab the Git attributes from my example so that we are processing everything through GIT LFS. And I'm just going to paste that in. Done. We can go ahead and close that. The other thing that's important is we need to make sure that we ignore the asset bundles folder, which the default Unity git ignore doesn't ignore. But asset bundles are huge, and we definitely don't want to be instancing those. So we're going to go ahead and pop back to this repo, and we're going to grab the git ignore. And you can see the line of code is right here, GitHub tutorial assets asset bundles. We can just copy that exact line and put it anywhere in this git ignore. And we need to change this to the name of our directory. So the directory in this case is going to be GitHub repo to Unity. We don't want to use it already knows the root folder is GitHub repo tut. It wants to know what folder inside of that folder we're trying to ignore. And it's going to be GitHub repo to _ Unity assets asset bundles. Okay, we can go ahead and save our git ignore now and close out of that. As you can see, when we go back over to Unity, these changes will show up here at the top. The git ignore was removed from the root folder and it was added into the Unity folder. The plus here indicates that. And the git attributes was changed with the yellow circle in the square. We can go ahead and create a summary. Okay, as you can see, I've just created a little title and a small description of what changes I've made here. We've created the Unity project, we moved the git ignore where it needs to be, we updated it to ignore the asset bundles folder, and we updated the git attributes to use LFS. And we can go ahead and commit these changes. So committing the changes essentially just means we've saved them locally. We are taking changes we've made and committing them to the master branch, which is what we're working in. Essentially, that's our Control S for GitHub. The final tool we can go ahead and use is we can go to our asset store here in Unity. We're going to go ahead and search for GitHub. And we can install the GitHub for Unity plugin. Now this plugin is not phenomenal. It's a little iffy and it has some issues, but it does have one really useful feature that I think people will greatly appreciate. And to demonstrate the power of this feature, we're actually going to hop over to the other Unity project that I showed you guys at the start where I demonstrated cloning the default project. Okay, I've actually changed my mind just a little bit about what project I'm going to demonstrate this with. We're going to use my SLS project. This is open source on GitHub, and to download it, all you have to do is exactly what I started out by showing, just clone the project to your own GitHub desktop. Really simple. As long as you have LFS initialized for your account, you can use it exactly like I demonstrated. So once you've gone ahead and installed the GitHub plugin, we're going to go to Window, GitHub, and that'll open this GitHub tab over here. As you can see, this project has quite a little bit of a history and a few things set up. But to start with, you'll have to initialize your account, which is quite easy. Just sign in, link your account, not too difficult. I would like to give a very quick warning. Do not commit through this plugin. The reason for this is that the GitHub desktop will give us a warning if we are trying to commit something that is too big of a file to be published or pushed to GitHub. If we go through Unity, however, it will not give us a warning. Meaning we can make commits, we can save things to our history that won't be able to be pushed online. And removing commits is a huge pain in the ass. We can revert them, but we can't remove them completely without going through a lot of hoops, which is incredibly difficult, and I do not recommend it. So please take my warning, heed it, don't make commits from here. Okay, now that we've gone through that, however, we can take a look at a really nice feature this has. I would like to very quickly state that what I'm about to say doesn't work with the sample scene for some reason. It only works if you create a new scene. This is something you should probably be in the habit of doing anyway, but just in case you're confused as to why what I'm about to show you isn't showing up. So we can click on our scene, and we can right click on it, and we can go Git and click the History button. And we can actually see the history of this exact asset, and I can do this with all my assets. I could, for instance, take a look at the cube map and see when it was committed and all the history and changes that have been made to it. But this is super useful with scenes because something else we can do, once these show up over here, we can actually right click and we can check out the revision. What this lets us do is we reload the scene, and now I'm taking a look at what this commit looked like. I can take a look at this commit, I can go back to this one, and it's all very quick and easy to look visually at the changes you made to your map. Something else that this can be really good for is it's kind of an easy and dirty revert system. If I want to go all the way back to this version of the map, I can go ahead and right click, check out the revision, I can save it, and then I can actually commit all the way back at this revised version. It's kind of a cheap method of reverting changes, but for Unity, it works pretty well, and it's the only reason to use this plugin, in my opinion. Everything else can be done directly through the GitHub desktop app. So we've got everything set up. The next thing I'm going to show you guys very briefly is we're going to talk about if we have an existing project that we want to convert to GitHub. There's a couple different ways we can do this, but the absolute easiest way to do it is to create a new repository like we've done today and just paste your entire project folder in. So for instance, if I wanted to create a new project, I would just create this new repo and I would take this project that I've already got and just drag and drop it over. There's ways we can convert this project to being used by GitHub, but it's actually more work than just copy pasting the folder into our new repository. The next thing we're going to take a look at is one of the final two things we'll look at today, and that's publishing. What this means is we're uploading it to the web. This isn't something we need to do every day. In fact, I only recommend you do it once every couple days or when you really need to. For the first time we publish something, we'll have to go through a little bit of a process here. And it's pretty simple. Nothing needs to be changed here, and we can go ahead and publish. This will take a little while. After we've published stuff, we can go ahead and push our changes very easily. So if I want to go ahead and push these changes I made to my SLS map, I can simply just give it a title. In this case, I'll just call it tutorial push. And we can give it a description. And we can commit this to the master. And now we have one change that hasn't been pushed, and we can go ahead and push to origin. The other thing we can do is once something has been pushed, we can also pull. So for instance, I worked on this on my laptop on stream this morning, and there's a bunch of changes online. 10 commits were made and pushed this morning, and I can now pull them to my desktop. And I can just go ahead and click on that button. And this is basically how we can collaborate with other people. So guys, that's pretty much everything you need to know about setting up GitHub for our projects. It's really useful. We can instance everything. We can revert commits just by going down the line and reverting stuff. We can unrevert reverts, and we can do a lot of other cool stuff that I haven't even touched with this program. It's super powerful, and it kind of gives us a ton of freedom with versioning and backing up. This is essentially a Control Z button that goes all the way back to June 24th. I can undo tons of changes, or I can redo stuff. I can back things up And it's really useful. If you see people having their files getting corrupted and their projects blowing up in their faces, hopefully tell them about this and hopefully it can help them, because this is how we prevent that from destroying entire projects and losing us hours of work. I hope that this has helped somebody, and in the future I would like to go into more depth on using this process to also collaborate with other users, but for the time being I think I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you later. Have a wonderful day.